My name is Eleanor, but I'm usually called Ellie. I'm 62 years old and I live in a nice home in a calm area. I've been a widow for a few years, and I spend my days in the peace of my garden, drinking tea on my porch or reading my favorite books by the window. Some people say I don't look my age. I'm grateful that people don't think I'm older than I am. My long, silver hair looks soft and I usually wear it loose around my shoulders. My skin is a little wrinkled from aging, but it's still smooth in some areas because I spend a lot of time in my garden. I have a curvy body, and I'm not very thin. I have strong legs, which help me with my daily activities. My green eyes are bright and full of energy. I have been told that my smile lights up a room, but not many people have noticed it. I had expected a life of tranquility and monotony, but then a moving truck arrived across the street on a sunny summer morning while I was watering my plants on the veranda. I saw a large white truck entering the driveway of the home immediately opposite mine. The home had been vacant for months, and I had gotten used to the solitude. But then I saw 3 guys get out of the truck. They were laughing and talking, and it made me feel excited. The first guy caught my attention right away. He was tall and strong, and he looked like he had been outside a lot. His hair was short and black, and he had a beard that made him look rough. He looked confident and strong. I could hear him over the noise of the street because he was speaking loudly as he directed the movers. I couldn't help but notice the strength in his arms as he helped to lift a big couch. The second man was very different. He was thin with messy blonde hair that hid his. He was playful and carefree, always smiling or joking around, and his laughter was contagious. It made me smile just to watch him. He seemed to be a happy person. The third man was more reserved. He was full of life and fun. He was always smiling and joking around, and his laughter was infectious. It made me smile just to look at him. He seemed like he was always happy, no matter what. The third man was more serious. He stayed in the background and watched as they worked. He looked like a smart guy, wearing glasses and thinking deeply. His dark brown hair was a little messy, and he looked friendly and approachable. But there was something mysterious about him, too. He stayed in the background and watched as they worked. He looked scholarly, with glasses on his nose, and thoughtful. His dark brown hair was a little messy, and he looked soft and friendly. But his eyes had a deep intensity that made it seem like he could read my thoughts, even though I didn't know what they were. I felt attracted to all 3 of them. Later that day, I was watering my flowers when I heard a voice say, "Excuse me, ma'am. Do you own this flower? Do you have any more garbage bags?" It seemed like we were out of them. I turned to look at the first guy in my garden. His strong hands were on the wooden fence. He was even more interesting. His black eyes showed warmth that surprised me, and his smile seemed real. I said, "I'm sorry, but I need more bags." I looked over the garbage bags we had and saw that we were all out. I turned to see the man standing at the edge of my yard. He had big hands on the wooden fence. His black eyes looked warm and friendly, and his smile seemed real. I said, "My clippers are here. I'll get the bags." He introduced himself while I collected some for you. "I'm Jack. My friends and I just moved across the street. Thanks for the help. You've been a lifesaver." Jack smiled and said his name, and I introduced myself, feeling a little. I stopped my clippers and turned around. He introduced himself while I collected some for you. "I'm Jack. My friends and I just moved across the street. Thank you for this. You have been a lifesaver." Jack was appropriate. I smiled and introduced myself, feeling a little flustered. He expressed his gratitude once again and went back to his house. The next day was the blonde man's opportunity to introduce himself. I was cleaning my porch when he leaped over, his exuberance contagious. "I'm Ryan. I only intended to visit and greet you," Jack informed us. Jack told us about your exceptional. I was cleaning my porch when the blonde man leaped over, his exuberance, which was contagious. "I am Ryan. I only intended to visit and greet you," he said. Jack informed us about your exceptional kindness yesterday. Ryan's grin was so bright that it seemed as if the sun had only come out for him. He reclined nonchalantly against the porch railing, his golden hair glinting in the light. We talked briefly about the neighborhood, the best places to eat, and his passion for travel. He shared more. I felt very happy after talking with him. Eventually, I encountered the quiet one while sitting in my garden reading. I heard a gentle voice. I trust he is not causing any inconvenience. I saw the guy with glasses at the gate holding a little potted plant. My name is Ben, he said. I started laughing uncontrollably after 15 minutes, more than I had in years. Then I met the quiet one in my garden while I was reading. I heard a quiet voice. I'm not bothering anyone. I saw the guy with glasses at the gate with a little potted plant. He said his name was Ben. He sounded calm and kind. I looked at your yard and thought you might like this lavender plant. They keep pests away. I was touched by the gesture. During our conversation, I found out that Ben was a writer who loved calm places and thoughtful talks. His comments were thoughtful, his tone was calm, and he had a depth about him that made me want to get to know him better. In the next few weeks, I became close to all three of them. Jack often helped me with heavy lifting at home. His strong presence made me feel safe and cared for, and he made my life fun. Adventure pushed me to try new things. He was always ready to go out and explore. Ben was calm and quiet. He sat with me in the garden and we had some really nice moments together. I didn't realize it at first, but I started to feel things for all of them. I had not felt these emotions in years. Jack was strong and calm. Ryan was full of energy and spontaneous. Ben was thoughtful. I liked spending time with them, but I also had strong feelings for all three of them. One evening, as the sun set over the neighborhood, I felt these feelings. One evening, Jack, Ryan, and Ben came to help me fix a broken fence in my backyard. We worked together, laughing and talking. For the first time in years, I felt truly alive. But as I noticed their special, charming qualities, my heart started to beat faster. How could I be starting to feel this way about all three of them? What would happen if they found out that I knew the answers but didn't tell them? One thing was certain, my calm life would change forever. The next few weeks were a roller coaster of emotions. I hadn't felt this way in years. Jack, Ryan, and Ben had become very important to me, I'm sure that, if they found out that I knew the answers but didn't tell them, my life would change forever. The next few weeks were very emotional for me. Jack, Ryan, and Ben have become very important to me, and I feel excited and nervous around them every day. One bright summer evening, Jack came to help me fix a leak in my garden shed. It was just as the sun was setting, and the golden light was shining on his wide shoulders and making his black eyes shine. I hope I'm not intruding, Jack said as he entered the shed. I'm not at all, I replied, offering him a wrench. I appreciated his help while he worked. I noticed how accurate his strong hands were and how calm and confident he was. He looked at me and caught my gaze. What is it? He asked, grinning teasingly. I'm not intruding, am I? He asked as he entered the shed. Not at all, I replied, offering him a wrench. I valued his help while he worked. I observed him, noting the accuracy of his strong hands and the calm confidence with which he conducted himself. He looked at me and caught my gaze. What is it? He teased, a grin tugging at the corners of his lips, causing my cheeks to flush. I said nothing, hastily averting my gaze. Although Jack was not one to overlook anything, he approached, his voice soft and subdued. Eleanor, please share your thoughts with me for a brief while, he said. I was at a loss for words. His proximity and the warmth of his eye felt my cheeks flush, and I looked away. Jack spoke softly and quietly. Eleanor, please tell me what you're thinking. I couldn't think of anything to say. I was too nervous. I felt my pulse speed up when I looked at him. I said, I'm very grateful to have you in my life. He smiled and put his hand on my shoulder. He said, I feel the same way. You have brought something special into my life. The moment was suspended in the air between us. We were both silent, but the tension in the air was almost tangible. Suddenly, we heard Ryan's laughter from the front yard. He arrived with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. With a smile, his golden hair reflecting the diminishing light, Jack stood aside, his face inscrutable, while Ryan extended the glasses towards me. I believed we might celebrate the remarkable appearance of your garden. Your flowers are the subject of neighborhood discussion. I found it amusing as I took the glasses. With a smile, Jack's golden hair glistened in the dim light. He stood to the side, his face hidden, while Ryan handed me my glasses. I thought we could celebrate the beautiful look of your garden. Everyone in the neighborhood is talking about your flowers. I thought it was funny, and I thanked Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. That was very nice of you, I said as we sat on the porch, drinking wine and looking at the stars. Ryan moved closer, his voice soft. He said, "You know, Eleanor, you have a special talent for making people feel alive. I have never met anyone like you. You're unlike anyone I've ever met." His words made my pulse quicken, and I looked at him, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. "Ryan, you bring energy to every moment." I felt sure that he meant what he said, and he smiled, his eyes looking deep into mine. He seemed to want me to stay in the moment before I could answer Ben. Ben's voice, which I recognized from the garden, made me feel excited. He said he didn't want to be late for the gathering. He came onto the porch with a shy smile, holding a small notebook. He sat in front of me and opened it to show me a drawing of my garden. The drawing was full of life. "I want to show this to Ben," spoke gently. His tone was composed and unwavering. "Your garden motivates me, but it is not merely the flowers. It is you, Eleanor. Your presence imbues everything with significance." His words profoundly affected me, and I extended my hand to grasp the notepad. My fingers grazed his. The warmth of his contact elicited a response. Ben spoke gently. He was calm and sure of himself. "Jack arrived first, and he was with a beautiful woman." Ben's words deeply affected me. I took the notepad, and my fingers touched his. I felt a shiver, and I looked into his eyes. As the evening went on, the three of them talked and laughed with me. Even though there was clear tension in the air, Jack was calm, Ryan was playful, and Ben was thoughtful. Each of them made me feel something different. I realized that this situation couldn't last. That night, I was alone in my garden. It was a cold night, and I felt sad and worried. I had feelings for all three of them, and I didn't know how to choose. The next day, Jack came first with beautiful flowers he had harvested from a nearby field. He said he wanted to make my day better. He was nice, and his eyes showed he was happy, but then Ryan came carrying a picnic basket and smiling. He said we could have lunch together. Ben arrived at the gate with a book, and he was happy. "I would like," he said, his tone calm and thoughtful, "making me think of you while reading it." The three of them exchanged glances, each understanding the other's feelings, and the atmosphere became full of tension. I stood there, my pulse racing, as the three of them turned to me, their eyes full of questions. In that moment, I realized that, despite the difficulties, I could not deny my feelings. "Ben," I said gently, my voice quivering. "Each of you has contributed something to my life that I did not anticipate. You have rekindled my awareness of existence, evoking pleasure and love." Their faces softened, and for the first time I saw comprehension in their gaze. "We do not want to do you harm, Eleanor," Jack said firmly. "Nor do we want to complicate your situation," Ben added softly. Ryan smiled his light, "For Jack." "Ryan, Ben," I said gently, my voice quivering. "Each of you has contributed something to my life that I did not expect. You have made me aware of life again, making me feel pleasure and love." Their faces softened, and for the first time, I saw understanding in their gaze. "We do not want to hurt you, Eleanor," Jack said firmly, "nor make your situation worse." Ben added softly. Ryan smiled, his warm, kind personality making the pressure less intense. "But it is clear that she deserves the struggle." We all found humor in the pressure as the sun went down over the garden. I recognized that this moment, full of love and connection in the beautiful chaos of emotions, would be forever cherished. The atmosphere among the four of us changed noticeably, as if the evening sun bathed us in golden light, yet it was the unspoken feelings that truly set my skin tingling. Jack, who was strong and solid, stood next to me. His dark eyes looked at mine, and I could see warmth in them that made me feel safe and exposed at the same time. Ryan, always the light. The world around us disappeared as we moved faster and faster. The sun was setting, and its golden light filled the sky. But it was the feelings we didn't say that made my skin tingle. Jack was strong and healthy, standing next to me. His black eyes looked at mine. They showed both safety and a softness that made me feel like I could trust him. Ryan, who was always calm, leaned against the railing. But now he looked at me with a new kindness and strength. Ben, who was always thinking, looked at me with his deep, thoughtful eyes. It was clear that we had a strong connection. It was more than just the usual. A kind person sat against the railing, looking relaxed but also serious. At the same time, Ben, who was thinking deeply, looked at me with his thoughtful eyes, as if he could see my soul. The connection between us was obvious. It was more than just romance. It was about shared experiences. We didn't say a word, but the quiet was powerful. Jack was the first to speak, his voice soft and emotional. He said, "You mean more to me than I can say." "You have." He rekindled my understanding of what it means to care for someone, to desire their protection, and to seek proximity. Jack extended his warm, steady hand and rested it on mine. His touch made me feel peaceful and excited. Ryan, unable to let a moment escape him, drew. He wanted to take care of me, protect me, and be close to me. He held out his hand, warm and steady, and placed it on mine. I felt calm, and then excited, as Ryan, who didn't want to miss a thing, moved closer. "Eleanor, Ryan, you have changed all of us." He spoke in a lower voice than usual, and his usual smile was replaced by a seriousness I hadn't expected. "Your presence makes our lives better, and I think I speak for all of us when I say that we have been permanently changed since we met." Took my other hand, and his touch. "Closer, Eleanor, Ryan. You have changed all of us." He spoke in a lower voice than normal, and his typical smile was replaced by an unexpected seriousness. "Your presence brightens our lives, and I believe I speak for everyone when I say that we have been permanently changed since we met." He took my other hand, his touch more delicate than Jack's but just as meaningful. My pulse quickened as I looked from Jack to Ryan, feeling their warmth and compassion around me. Ben, silent and composed, stepped closer, his gaze fixed on me. "I am not as bold as Jack or Ryan," Ben said. His voice was firm and emotionless, but I share their feelings. Ben's quiet and composed as he stepped closer, his gaze fixed on me. "I am not as bold as Jack or Ryan," Ben said, his voice firm and emotionless. "You have given me what I didn't have. I see my need for Eleanor. You have shown the true meaning of connection and understanding." Ben's hand joined the hands of the others, resting gently on my shoulder, and the warmth and care of our unbreakable bond enveloped me. My heart raced now. Ben's hand joined mine on my shoulder, and I felt the unbreakable bond between us. I was overwhelmed with a mix of exhilaration, apprehension, and deep, calm happiness. How had this happened? How had I gone from living alone to being with these amazing people who make me feel so good? I didn't know what to say. I looked at each of them, and my voice was a little shaky. I felt a mix of excitement, worry, and happiness. How had this happened? How had I gone from living a calm life alone to being with these amazing people who make me feel good? I didn't know what to say. I looked at each of them one by one. You all have helped me a lot in my life. I have felt things I thought I would never feel again, and I'm not sure how to feel all of it. Jack's hand held mine a little tighter. His strength made me feel safe. You don't have to do that, Jack. Say anything, Eleanor. We're here because you're our friend, and we care about you and what you want, Ryan said. He laughed, and his joy was clear. We're not going anywhere. You're with us. Ben gave me a comforting hug. Ben said that Ryan wants to make it clear that no matter what happens, we're still your friends and we'll be there for you. As the night went on and the stars started to shine in the sky, we stayed in the garden, sitting on the porch together. Our connection was growing stronger with every passing moment. We weren't in a hurry to do anything, we just sat there quietly enjoying each other's company. At one point, Jack put a blanket over my shoulders. His touch felt a little longer than usual. Ryan came closer and started laughing, and his laughter echoed through the night. There was no hurry, just the quiet understanding that we were all involved in something important, something that didn't need to be explained right away. Jack put a blanket around my shoulders, his touch a little longer than needed. Ryan came closer, his laughter filling the night, and he teased me about my book collection in a playful way, but his tone was also tender, which made me feel good. Meanwhile, Ben, who was always reserved, stayed close, making me feel safe and comfortable. As time went on, I leaned into their warmth and embraced vulnerability. Jack moved closer, his voice low. Jack spoke quietly. "Eleanor, I have a question for you." I looked at Ryan and Ben. I said, "Do you ever feel connected to us in a way that goes beyond friendship?" I felt my throat tighten. I looked at them, and I could see the sincerity in their eyes. Ryan's playful tone was gone. "Eleanor, I have a question for you." I looked at him, and my heart was beating faster. Jack stopped for a moment and looked at Ryan and Benny said, "Do you ever feel like there's more to our connection than just friendship?" I started to feel nervous. I looked at them, and I could see that they were serious. Ryan was being funny, but now he was serious. Ben was looking at me in a way that made me feel sad, and I felt my heart hurt. I tried to say the right thing, but I didn't know how to respond. Jack held my hand more tightly. "It's okay, Eleanor. We want to tell you how we feel." Ryan nodded in agreement. I felt overwhelmed by a mix of emotions. Jack's hand held mine, and his touch made me feel safe. Ben's quiet laughter, though still light, echoed in my ears. I tried to speak, but I couldn't find the right words. I felt a bit uneasy, and Jack's hand on my hand got a little stronger. "Eleanor, we want to tell you how we feel," Ryan said in a soft voice. "We care about you, Eleanor, maybe too much," Ben added gently. "We want to support you no matter what happens." The air around us felt thick with emotions we didn't speak about. I felt their warmth and care completely surround me. My pulse was racing as I sang into their embrace, letting myself be vulnerable. Ben said, "Eleanor, we care about you. Maybe too much. We want to support you no matter what." The air felt thick with emotions. I felt their warmth and care around me. My pulse was racing as I sang, letting myself be vulnerable. I felt calm. It was cold outside, but Jack, Ryan, and Ben kept me warm. I felt safe and loved. I felt strong. Jack's hand was on my shoulder. Ryan was laughing, but it was soft. I felt at ease. Jack's warm touch made me feel happy and excited. Ryan's laughter was soft and comforting. Ben's strong presence made me feel safe and ready to trust. "Eleanor," Jack said quietly. His voice was low and emotional. "We don't want to rush you, but we also don't want to waste." Ryan's words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. "Eleanor, we've all wanted this for a while now." "Ben, you're right. We have all had an undeniable attraction to you upon readiness." The intensity of Ben's presence made my heart flutter. He was solid and comforting. He made me feel strong enough to let go of my concerns. Jack spoke quietly. "We don't want to rush you, but we also don't want to waste any time when it comes to how we feel about you." I looked into his dark eyes. I saw not just the man who had become such an integral part of my life, but the depth of his feelings for me. My heart raced. I felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Ryan, who was the one to make the mood better, smiled and said, "If we're being honest, Eleanor, we've all wanted this for a while now." Ben nodded, looking serious but also tender. He was right. We have all had an undeniable attraction to you. Ryan, who was the one to lighten the mood, grinned and said, "If we're being honest, Eleanor, we've all wanted this for a while now." Ben nodded, his expression serious yet tender. He's right. We've all had an undeniable attraction to you upon readiness. The intensity of their words and the sincerity in their gaze made me breathless. I experienced a surge of desire and a profound yearning to close the physical gap between us. My body tingled with anticipation, and I recognized that I could no longer deny my feelings. I extended my hands, trembling slightly. I put my hands on Jack's chest. His muscles got stiff when I touched him, and he breathed deeply. His warm breath felt on my skin. I looked at Ryan. His fun smile had turned into a serious look of wanting me. I touched his face, feeling his rough stubble, and saw that. I touched Jack's chest. His muscles got stiff when I touched him. He breathed deeply. His breath was warm on my skin. I looked at Ryan. His fun smile turned into a serious look. I touched his face. I felt his short hair under my fingers. I saw that his golden eyes looked deep and full of desire. Finally, I looked at Ben. He was looking at me. I put my hand on his arm. I felt the steady beat of his pulse under my hand. He made a soft noise when Jack's hand moved to the small of my back. He pulled me closer. His touch was firm but gentle, and I could feel the heat from his body. Ryan's hand found mine, and we intertwined our fingers. His thumb grazed my skin in a delicious caress, then encircled my waist, pulling me into a firm hug. His breath was warm on my ear, and I felt like the world was fading away. His touch was firm but gentle. I could feel the heat from his body. Ryan's hand found mine, and we intertwined our fingers. His thumb grazed my skin in a delicious caress, then encircled my waist, pulling me into a firm hug. His breath was warm on my ear. It felt like the world disappeared, and only the four of us were left in this intimate space. I could hear the leaves rustling in the garden, the distant drone of insects, and our breaths synchronized. The fragrance of fresh flowers mixed with the earthy scent of the soil, creating an intoxicating blend that overwhelmed me. My senses were overwhelmed. Jack's lips met mine first, his kiss slow and tender, his tongue gently exploring between my lips. I moaned softly, arching my body towards him, as my hands explored his broad back, his beard brushing against my cheeks, adding a delightful roughness to the kiss. At the same time, Ryan's lips. Jack's lips met mine, his kiss slow and tender. His tongue gently touched my lips, and I moaned softly, moving closer to him. I felt his beard brushing against my cheeks, adding to the excitement of the kiss. At the same time, Ryan's lips found the sensitive skin behind my ear, his teeth barely touching the lobe as he whispered, "You taste so good, Eleanor." His hand moved to my hips, holding me tightly and bringing us closer together. I could feel him aroused and pressing against my thigh. Jack's kisses moved down my neck, his lips soft yet firm. He moved his lips to my ear, and I felt a shiver of pleasure. He moved his hands to my hips and held me close. I felt his arousal pressing against my thigh. He kissed my neck, his lips soft and determined. He moved his lips lower, leaving small kisses on my collarbone. His hands moved to my back, and he breathed warmly against my skin, causing me to shiver with a mix of pleasure and anticipation. Jack then broke the kiss. His dark eyes burned with desire as he looked down at me. "Are you certain, Eleanor? This is your decision." Tears welled up in my eyes. Jack kissed me, and his hands moved over my back. I felt a shiver of pleasure and anticipation. Then he stopped kissing me. His eyes showed that he was upset. He asked, "Are you sure you want to do this, Eleanor?" I cried a little. I felt many strong feelings. I said, "Yes," and he kissed me again. This time he kissed me more strongly. His hands moved down my body. They made me feel excited. Ryan's hands touched my stomach. I breathed out sharply. My body reacted. I felt two sensations at once. The air felt thick, and the four of us had a shared understanding as the sun set. Jack moved closer, his free hand brushing my face with his thumb. His fingers touched my skin slowly and deliberately, making me feel warm. He leaned in slightly, breathing warmly. Jack moved closer, and I could feel the air thickening. We were all feeling the same things. Jack's hand moved closer to my face, and his fingers touched my skin. I felt a warmth in my chest. He breathed warm air on my forehead. He said, "You've added something to my life that I didn't even realize I was missing." I didn't answer. Ryan moved in from the other side. His lips touched the curve of my ear. His voice was low and playful. I shivered. "Do you understand the impact you've had on us, Eleanor? You have changed how we see the world." Ben's hand on my back moved a little, his fingers made a line that made me feel excited, and his voice became even quieter, like a whisper. "You've changed," Jack said, coming closer, his forehead touching mine. I could feel the steady beat of our hearts. "You've changed, Eleanor. You've changed how we see the world." Ben's hand on my back moved slightly. His fingers traced a line that made me feel excited, and his voice became even quieter, like a whisper. "You've changed, Jack," he said, leaning closer to me. His forehead touched mine, and I could feel his steady breathing. For a moment, it felt like we were the only two people in the world. His lips brushed against my temple, and he stayed there for a longer moment than necessary before pulling back. His eyes looked at me, searching. Ryan, not wanting to be outdone, moved closer, his lips brushing against mine. His breath mixed with mine, and it felt like we were the only two people in the world. His lips brushed against my temple, and he lingered there for a heartbeat longer than necessary before pulling back. His eyes searched mine. Ryan, not one to be outdone, shifted closer, his lips brushing against the curve of my jaw. His kisses were light and teasing, like a feather trailing against my skin. Each one left a trail of warmth and a promise of more without rushing the moment. Ben's hand moved again, his fingertips tracing patterns along my back that sent a delicious thrill coursing through me. He bent slightly, and his lips. He kissed the top of my shoulder, then moved up toward my neck. Each kiss was soft and slow, as if he were remembering the moment. Jack's hands moved to my waist, his thumbs tracing slow, lazy circles on my sides. His touch was steady and comforting. His kisses were slow and careful, as if he was remembering every moment. Jack's hands moved to my waist, and his thumbs moved slowly and gently along my sides. His touch was different from the playful touch of Ryan's fingers, which moved along my arm. Ryan looked at me, his eyes full of fun and love. He leaned in again, and our lips met in a kiss that was both playful and tender. He tasted like warmth and laughter, and his energy was infectious. Ryan's fingers gently touched my arm. He looked at me, his eyes full of fun and love. He moved closer to me, and his lips met mine in a playful and caring kiss. He tasted like warmth and laughter, and his energy was contagious. His hands moved to the rest of my hips. Ben's kisses moved higher, his lips brushing just below my ear, and his voice sounded soft and deep. "You're incredible, Eleanor." The intensity of the moment increased, not because they were rushing, but because of the deep connection between them. Jack's hand moved to my face, tilting it up. Ben's kisses moved higher, his lips brushing just below my ear, as his voice rumbled softly. "You're incredible, Eleanor." The intensity of the moment increased not through hurry, but through a constant, unwavering depth. Jack's hand moved to my face, tilting it slightly, while his lips grazed the corner of my mouth. His kiss was measured and intentional, with each contact of his lips on mine signifying the depth of his affection. Ryan, always unpredictable, brushed his lips to the tip of my nose before drawing back slightly to meet my eyes once again. "You are radiant," he said. He kissed me on the corner of my mouth. It was slow and meant to be special. Then he brushed his lips to the tip of my nose. He met my eyes again. "You are radiant," he said. His voice was steady. He traced my back slowly with his hands. Then he kissed my temple. He was different from Jack and Ryan. His touch and kisses showed a love that was deeper than words. Then the stars began to shine. As the stars began to appear overhead, their gentle glow cast a silvery light over the garden where the four of us stood united by our touches and looks that conveyed everything that we were unable to articulate. Disappeared, leaving behind the warmth of their hands, the tenderness of their kisses, and we were all connected by the way we touched and looked at each other. We were unable to express it, but we all felt that this was just the start. "You look beautiful, Eleanor," he said. His voice was full of desire. He was always the funny one, so he giggled quietly. "It is time for us to enter," Jack said. He lifted his head and smiled in a way that made it clear he was angry. They had taken control of me. Jack held my upper body, his strong arms holding me tight, while Ryan lifted my legs. His hands gently gripped the backs of my thighs. Then he guided me with his fingers. Our hands were clasped as we approached the house. The night air had cooled, but the warmth of Jack and Ryan each grabbed a part of my body. Jack held my upper body, his strong arms holding me tight, while Ryan lifted my legs. His hands gently gripped the backs of my thighs. Then he guided me with his fingers. Our hands were clasped as we approached the house. The night air had cooled, but the warmth of the moment enveloped me. I sensed the gravel crunching underfoot, a sound subdued by the urgency of our actions within the house. The familiar scent of lavender and freshly cut flowers permeated the air, intertwining with the intoxicating essence of the moment as we entered. Ryan advanced first, positioning himself. I felt the gravel under my feet, but I didn't pay much attention to it because I was too busy with what was going on inside the house. I could smell lavender and fresh flowers, and I could smell the excitement of the moment. Ryan came in first, standing next to me and putting his arm around my shoulders. "Come here, Ellie," he said, pulling me close to him. His touch was warm and comforting, and I closed my eyes and breathed in his scent. Ben stood next to me, his hand gently on my leg. "Relax, Eleanor. We're here," Jack said, reassuring me. "Come here, Ellie," he said, his voice warm and soothing. I felt his arm around my shoulders and his hand on my leg. "We're here, Jack," he said. Ben sat down in front of me. He was on the floor, looking at me. His black eyes met mine. I felt my heart beating faster. He said, "Let go of each other's hands, Eleanor and Jack." I let go of them. I felt calm. I let them help me. Ryan's warm breath on my hair and Ben's soothing touch on my leg made me feel relaxed and affectionate. Jack's hands stroked up and down my calf, reassuring me. His fingers touched my cheek, and I shivered. The close proximity to each other made the atmosphere more intimate. I felt a mix of desire and deep affection, and my heart was racing as I looked at them. They looked tender and deep, and my breath hitched. Ryan's hand moved to my back, and his fingers drew slow circles on my skin while Ben's hand. My heart was racing. I felt a mix of desire and strong affection. I saw that they were all looking at me with love in their eyes. Ryan's hand moved to my back, his fingers gently touched my skin. Ben's hand moved to my leg. He touched me in a way that was soft but also strong. I made a soft sound because of how good it felt. Jack's hand moved to my neck. His thumb touched my pulse point. I closed my eyes and enjoyed the feeling. His touch was both strong and gentle. It made me feel warm and happy inside. Jack's touch was both strong and soft, and it made me gasp. He slowly moved his hand up my neck, and I closed my eyes because I liked how he was touching me. I felt a lot of things at the same time, and I felt very warm. I opened my eyes and looked at Jack, and I could see that he was feeling the same things I was. Ryan's hand held my back tightly, and he breathed quickly as he moved closer to me. Ben's hand moved up my body, and I could see where he was touching me. I felt a lot of strong emotions, and I was also very turned on. I opened my eyes and looked at Jack, who looked back at me with a look of desire. Ryan's hand held my back tightly, and he breathed heavily as he moved closer to me. Ben's hand moved up the side of my leg to my thigh, and I breathed out sharply as his touch made me feel very excited. Jack's hand touched the bottom of my dress, and his fingertips touched the skin on the inside of my thigh, which made me shiver. Ryan moved closer to me, and I felt a lot of pleasure. His lips touched the skin on the side of my ear as he whispered, "You're beautiful, Ellie. Ellie, you're absolutely stunning, so perfect." Jack muttered, his voice full of desire. "Articulate your desires, Eleanor." Ben. His tone was calm, but he was also excited. "What do you need from us?" I closed my eyes, my pulse pounding, as I tried to say the words, "Stimulate me in all areas. Evoke a sense of vitality." Ryan's arm moved around me, gently squeezing my upper arm. His touch was light and playful as he leaned down to kiss my temple. His lips lingered for a moment before moving to my cheek. Each kiss was soft and warm, leaving a tingling feeling behind. Jack moved closer, his hand touching my face, his fingers gently holding the back of my head as he tilted it up a little. His dark eyes met mine for a second, and then he kissed me, his lips firm but soft, with a lot of passion. Ben stood behind me, his hand on my waist, and his thumbs traced slow, rhythmic circles on my skin, making me feel grounded. Meanwhile, Ryan continued to kiss me while Jack's lips moved against mine in a way that was very tender. Then, Ben lowered his head and brushed the side of my neck with his lips, breathing warm air on me. I shivered from the touch of his lips on my neck. Ryan laughed quietly, and then he kissed me on my jaw. He said, "You're so beautiful, Ellie," his voice low and loving. He grinned at me, and then he slowly kissed the corner of my mouth, stopping just before Jack's kiss was about to begin. Jack's hands were on my shoulders, his thumbs touching my collarbone. He stopped kissing me for a moment to press his forehead against mine. His breath was warm and steady, and his lips touched mine as he He moved his fingers to the corner of my mouth, stopping just before he was about to kiss me. Jack's hands were on my shoulders. His thumbs were on my collarbone. He stopped kissing me for a moment to put his forehead against mine. His breath was warm and steady. His lips were very close to mine, and he said, "You're everything I didn't know I needed, Eleanor." Jack lifted my head slightly. His fingers traced the contour of my shoulders. He moved my head down a little bit, and his lips continued moving along my neck. Every kiss was tender and slow. I could feel his love in every kiss. Ryan's touch was light and careful as he moved his fingers along my cheek, turning my face toward him. His lips met mine in a playful and warm way. He intensified the kiss slightly as he moved his hand to the back of my neck, gently touching my hair. Jack took his hands away, resting them gently on my waist. Ryan's fingers touched my cheek as he moved my face closer to his. His lips met mine, and he held me closer. His hand moved to the back of my neck, and his fingers gently touched my hair. Jack took his hands off me, and they rested on my waist. He looked at the connection between Ryan and me, smiling a little, and then he leaned in again. His lips traced the shape of my jaw, and his kisses went down to the middle of my neck. His touch did not change. Ben's lips touched my skin in a sensitive way. Ben's lips touched my skin in a way that made my heart beat faster. His kisses moved from my jaw to my shoulder, gently touching the fabric of my top. Then he moved his hand to my waist, holding me tightly while he continued to kiss me. Each kiss was slower and more intentional. Ryan gently Ben's kisses moved from my shoulder to my waist, and he held me while he kissed me. He took his thumb off my cheek and smiled at me. "You're incredible, Ellie," he said. His voice was warm. Then he kissed the tip of my nose. Even in that calm and intense moment, Jack was funny. He took my hand and kissed me on the cheek. "You're incredible, Ellie," he said. His voice was warm. Then he kissed me on the nose. Even in that calm and intense moment, Jack's humor was clear. His hands were resting lightly on the fabric of my shirt. As he walked closer, his lips found mine again. This kiss was deeper, and his hand held me as he gently pulled me closer. Ben adjusted his position a little bit. His hands touched my back as he leaned in closer. His lips found the other side of my face. He touched me lightly with his thumbs as he walked closer, and then he kissed me again. This kiss was deeper, and he held me as he moved closer. Ben moved a little bit, and his hands touched my back. He kissed me slowly and deliberately on the neck, and then he moved his hands up. His touch was gentle and steady. You could hear the quiet sounds of them breathing and the warmth of their touches. They kissed each other slowly and deliberately, and every time they touched me, it was intentional. He kissed me slowly and gently on the neck. His hands moved up and down my body. His eyes looked at me. The room was filled with the sounds of their breathing and the warmth of their touches. Each kiss and touch was a sign of our strong connection. The moment felt longer as the three of them gave me their love and warmth. Ryan's hand moved down my arms. His touch was soft and playful as his lips touched the corner of my mouth. He kissed me gently. His fingers touched mine, and then he let go. We smiled at each other. Our breaths mixed in the silence, and the quiet room felt like a warm hug. The smell of lavender from the garden filled the air. The warmth of the moment, the sound of our breathing, and the gentle, rhythmic sound of our hearts beating all filled the air. Jack looked at me and held my face with his fingers, touching me tenderly. This caused my chest to hurt. "You well, Eleanor?" Jack asked, his voice steady but nervous. I nodded and smiled faintly. My body was still feeling the effects of our encounter, and I felt their care deeply in my heart. I quietly said the words, "feeling." All the emotions I was unable to express, I murmured, my voice filled with gratitude. Ryan's smile softened as he moved closer, and our lips met in a kiss so sweet that it felt like a promise. When he pulled away, his forehead rested gently on mine. "We are present for you, Ellie," he said, his voice soft but firm. Ben's hand consistently. I felt all the emotions I couldn't express. Ryan's smile got better as he moved closer. His lips met mine in a kiss so sweet that it felt like a promise. Then he took his forehead off mine and rested it on mine. "We are here for you, Ellie," he said. His voice was soft but strong. Ben's hand was always on my hip. His strong presence made me feel safe. His soothing voice made the silence feel like it was full of something. "Any way you want, any time," he said. His words were simple but important. In that moment, I didn't need anything else. This closeness and connection was enough. The focus was not on he was resting on my hip. His steady presence made me feel safe. His voice was soothing. He said whatever he wanted, and it was important. At that moment, I didn't need anything else. I felt close to him, and that was enough. I didn't think about what might happen later. I just enjoyed the moment. I felt the warmth of their touches, I heard their real words, and I felt like they really saw me, loved me, and I was alive. I closed my eyes, and I felt their care. My heart felt full of gratitude for this love that I didn't expect. It felt natural, like breathing. As the soft light of the stars came through the curtains, I knew that my life had changed forever. No matter what happened next, I was no longer alone. For the first time in years, I felt really calm.